What's good, YouTube? It's me, your boy Squiddy, back again with another video. Today, really quickly want to go over tier decks post-ban list. We all know that the ban list came out, so Mystic Mine got banned, which is super huge, and obviously Herald of Orange Light went to 1. Biggest things that kind of affect this deck, besides the Floodgates. So yeah, without further ado, just diving in, it's super standard. I think the recipes, like the deck lists, are all going to look super standard this format, especially for this deck, where like certain flex spots, like tech cards, will really come in handy, for example, in the side deck. But also, the playing is super important, which is kind of nice. I know a lot of people hate tier 0 formats, but this deck especially is so complicated, so intricate that there's so many complex interactions. So I think learning how to play it is more critical than anything. And yeah, it's very standard. Again, we're just playing, I'm playing 2 Agido here. I think it's a decent extender. Just want to test it out, given that, there'd be a lot more mirrors. And this card actually isn't that bad, especially on your turn, because you can use it as a free extender to special summon it from your hand when your opponent mills themselves with Happiness, for example, or when you mill them with a Kelbeck or another copy of Agido when you're under Dweller. So you can actually also get a free Asa, given that it's 2 monsters, including an Earth monster, so it allows you to bait out one of their shufflers in their grave potentially as well, on top of being a free body. And, rank 4s are always good in this deck, right? So we can make potential free Dwellers, free even free Redoers, free Zeus. I just wanted to give it a try. Obviously, it can be cut to 1 because it's not that great if you don't have any ways to play. For example, milling your opponent. Again, this is kind of nice in that it's a free level 4 body against decks that happen to shifter you, because the moment that they do discard the shifter, this becomes live because if a card is sent from the hand or deck to your opponent's graveyard, which includes that shifter that they discarded for cost. We can actually special summon this from our hand as a level 4 extender and then make a free Baguska, which should generally be in the extra monster zone if they are happening to play Sprite. Some decks play Nightmare Cerberus, so we don't want them to pop it with Cerberus, so might as well just put it in the extra deck slot. And then from there, usually that's enough to shut off the shifter decks, at least for a turn or 2, given that it is a skill drain that's really effective against those decks, unless they have something like an Imperm or a Book of Moon if they're playing that in Flunderies. We are playing the 6 Bestials. I think this was a mistake for me not to play this at YCS. I think these are just so good. It doesn't, yeah, if they dark back the Magmut, it does really suck. But again, the pros outweigh the cons, because having this going second is super important, because the way that you win the mirror, especially since Dweller didn't get banned, is generally, I think you want to flood the board with your own bodies so you can actually stop them from playing. Yeah, you could play cards like Forbidden Droplet, but I just don't like the discard. I think in this deck, you don't really want to discard. I mean, I know there are a lot of bodies you want to discard, but at the end of the day, when you do happen to discard, every card counts. You would rather have Keldo in your hand as an extender that you can either summon off of his own effect or potentially discard for Sharon, for example. You already have in your engine a lot of ways to make use of it, which requires resources, and you just kind of lose that with Droplet, so I don't really like Droplet in that sense. But I'd rather play more Bestials, and maybe even Saronir is another option that you could definitely try, because again, it's a free level 6 body that you can make Beatrice on top of being a 2500 attack, so you can threaten cards. You can swing over cards like Elf, swing over Dwellers, and just even getting rid of cards and starting to control the board is really important in the matchup. So I think putting bodies on board is super important. That being said, we are playing 1 Herald the Orange Light. I know this card, a lot of people have actually cut it because it was at 1 and it was debatable at 3, but I think it's good enough to run. You're never going to open multiple copies, so it's not a card that's really going to be dead in the mirror. You can still leverage this to use it against your opponent's Bestials or potentially their shufflers in the grave, which can be super high impact if used at the right moment, especially on a larger chain link where there are a lot of shufflers flying around, a lot of Bestials, and then you just happen to have that extra negate on top of all the other cards that you have in the chain. So I do think it's worth testing, and again, having it as a blowout option, one of, against non-tier decks is super critical, especially when you're able to discard a Kelbeck or an Agido. So I want to keep it in just to keep it as a test. And also, again, milling it as an extra level 2, you can also alpha it back on your turn, which is kind of nice. Obviously, we don't play Baron because there's not really a point in playing Baron, given that we don't play Diviner nor other copies of Herald. But again, I think it's good enough to play. Moving on, obviously 3 of each of these guys. Gravekeeper's Trap is another option that you can re-explore with Medora. I just don't like the idea of traps, because I find that in this deck, whenever you open pink cards, you actually just happen to lose just by seeing the pink cards. It's 1 dead card. I know people are playing multiple Suliaks, which theoretically is a nice mill, but for me, when I was testing, every time I lost, it was because I had a purple card, and it just meant I was playing with 1 less card. I know you can discard it with the effect of Rhino Heart from the graveyard, but that means that you're already playing, which is easier said than done, because especially when you're under Dweller and Celiac, you're just staring at it in your hand, which I don't really like. Obviously, the tier lineup, I'm still playing 3 of each. I feel like these ones are too good, especially Merly. Some people are playing 2, but again, I just want the maximum chances to hit a name off of a mill. For example, like Happiness, I feel like that just pushes you so much ahead. So again, I just do want to play multiple copies of Merly, as well as Rhino Heart. I feel like theoretically, you could play 2, but I just like playing 3 because I think having an extra body to open on top of it being a level 4, again, you do want to see some level 4s in your hand in order to consistently make a Dweller, and especially since I'm not playing Mudragon, and the reason for that is because I feel like some of the flex spots are more important. Things like Titanite and Asa, I think are the 2 flex spots that you could play Mudragon, one over the other, but I feel like they come up in the matchups that they're a lot more important than actually having access to that extra level 4 that you do have to burn a name to summon. I would rather use my names, obviously, on Kit Kalos, and then the other one on Rukalos or Dragostipelia, and potentially the third one on Garudus, so I can make the Elf and get the draw, or make a Beatrice and also get the draw, as opposed to the Mudragon. But Mudragon does come up in niche situations where you have to make the Dweller, and you're kind of like, it comes up more often than not when your opponent has a Bestial or some kind of interruption where they kind of make it that you have to play differently with a name short, so you can't actually make that Dweller. And again, when they do Bestial you, you're name short as well. So upon 2 names, one you're going to use for Kit Kalos. Essentially, the other one you would be forced to use it for Mudragon, so you're not making a level 8 on your turn, which I don't really like the idea of. But again, it is like a little bit of testing. So if you do find it comes up, potentially you could play it over Asa or Exciton Knight. I think those are the only ones that are really cuttable from this deck, I would say, in the extra deck. And then obviously one instant fusion, not sure why this was not banned. The 4 field spells, again, super clutch. It's critical that you do get to this. You could try Demise of the Land. I did see some players were playing that previously in YCS Pasadena. It's really important to get this onto the field. But the problem with Demise of the Land is because it does activate based on a card effect, by game mechanics, you actually cannot search. This does have to be activated on its own from your hand to meet the activation requirement in order to search your deck. So you would essentially be activating for the Rhino for nothing with Demise of the Land, and since mine is banned, I don't really think it's a good option. 2 Scream, this is a really good card, especially starting off. The problem with this card is it is super dead going second when your opponent has a Abyss Dweller. It's literally a dud. So I always side out 1 copy going second because it's not very good when you're staring down a Abyss Dweller. And potentially it could be cut maybe just to 1 copy. I know it's a very good card given that you can mill on your turn and your opponent's turn. But again, like under Dweller, you just want as many cards that you can play as possible, okay? Like going first, we're already pretty favored to win, especially in this format. So I don't know, maybe this card could be cut for another flex spot. And that's why I like to play 2 Talents as well. It's just like a good card that helps you push through tempo, push through boards, especially when you're under Dweller. You could steal a monster, get rid of their body, and also put a body on your field, swing over something, and then potentially link off into a dark, bring back something else, or just overlay into your own Zeus if you happen to steal their Dweller. So fun fact to note there. And then 1 Soliac. Didn't really want to play pink cards because I find like that's how you generally brick, which is not great. Side deck, I haven't really innovated. There are a lot of options. Obviously, you can play the time cards and some other stuff, back row removal, but obviously the crime. Don't want to main this again. Purple cards, not something you want to see. This card is kind of interesting. I want to bring this up in the video. It's a tech card that I had an idea of. Curry card, Divincarnate. I'll show you guys how it works. Essentially, I think it could work out in the mirror match. Cannot be normal summoned in the set. Must be special summoned by attributing all face-up monsters on the field that activate their effects this turn in your opponent's monster zone. Gains 1500 attack for each monster attributed to summon this card, and then during the end phase, you can target 1 monster in your opponent's graveyard, special summon it to your field. So it has a base attack of 1500. So any monster, if you attribute 1, it will become 3k, which is quite sizable in the mirror match because you can swing over things. And generally in their end board, they're going to end on a Dweller, so that's already guaranteed that you're going to attribute at least 1 monster. On top of getting rid of their Dweller, you are going to have a big body that can swing over something. And in the end phase, potentially bait out one of their shufflers to shuffle back the target that you target. And if they don't have any shufflers, you just go super plus because you are able to summon back a Kit Kalos or like anything bigger that happens to be chilling in their graveyard. So it's kind of nice. I'll show you guys how it works. It's all in theory, but I'll show you guys right after this. So the extra deck I think is really tight. Obviously Garuda, Predaplant, Kaleidoheart, 1 Kit Kalos. I was playing 2 before, but I think, yeah, just 1's good enough. You do want to have as many flex options as possible, especially for the mirror match and for non-mirror match where you want just more toolbox. Rukalos, Abyss Dweller, Beatrice, obviously with the 2 level 6s, Garuda and the Bestial. Zeus, really important. Bagusa, you have to play this because it is really good against the shifter decks. It's like your 1 go-to option. Instead of passing, I've had games where I passed against Sprite and they just OTK'd me because they happen to have a Bestial plus like 2 names. So definitely try to make this if you can. Time Thief Redoer, I think you still definitely need this to trigger the Sharon. Remember, guys, we have options. So we can overlay into Time Thief to trigger one of our Sharons, or we also have Sprint to trigger one of our Merleys. So it's just like more options to push through your names as much as possible, especially in a convoluted game state where they are like hand trapping you, especially in the non-tier matchup. Excited on that. I do really like this against Wonders and against Sprites. Basically, putting any 2-level bodies on board forces them to do something, and a lot of times they don't really expect this or they forget about it. So you just go ahead and make this in defense mode under M-Pen and then just pop everything on the field. Afterwards, you can also make a Zeus if you happen to be able to attack again. Also, I do really like this, being able to shuffle back their shufflers. It's just really nice as a bait. And then from there, you can actually go off into a Dark to reborn their Magna mode, or potentially into a Sprint to push through your Merle. So I really like this card. There are matchups where they also play Fenrir, so you can also steal Fenrir for free and then start banishing things face down. You can also, like, if this happens to push through, you can reborn back a Kelbeck or an Agido and start making rank 4 plays. It's just one of the nicer cards, I think, to have it as available toolbox in your extra deck. Same thing with Dark, obviously super busted. You guys all know what this does. Elf as well, and then Sprint to make them early plays. So really quickly, I'll show you guys how this works. So I have here pretty standard tier board. So my opponent's passing on this Rukalos, the Elf, and the Dollar, which, by the way, generally you probably should have Drago Stapila to play around Super Poly, but I know the average player still does make this board, so I'm just demonstrating the possibilities. So opponent will obviously shotgun the Abyss Dollar just to play around something like Raw Spear mode or like, you know, tactics potentially in the main phase. So from here, we actually do already have a Divincarnate for 1, and this is an inherent summon, by the way, so it does not activate, so they can't actually Rukalos it. One of the cool things that you can do is you can even bluff it evenly. So if I try and go to battle phase, more often than not, like the chances are, if it'll let me, I don't know why it's stuck. Okay, it's glitched, but pretend we're going to the battle phase, guys. The Sprite Elf is probably going to activate here just to target them early, just to play around, you know, like something like an evenly. And then from there, obviously, Merle's going to activate as well. So that's already 3 monsters that are triggering. If they mill a name, potentially it could be more, you know, like if they happen to mill this, maybe they're just going to make a Kick Hallows to search Havenness to kind of like diversify the resources to play into the evenly. So maybe they're just going to go like this into the Kick Hallows, and boom. That's already like 4 monsters, which is pretty significant. They're going to add like Havenness. Like off 1 card, it allows you to sort of clear their board as well as get a huge monster on the board. So from here, I mean, I can just literally drop this Divincarnate. I'm going to tribute. It's a non-inherent special summon, so it does not activate. Tributes the Elf, tributes the Merle, tributes the Kick Hallows, and tributes the Dweller. So already I tributed 4 monsters. That's like a 6k boost, so I'm 7,500. And because it tributes as a cost, obviously, it does not activate any of the cards that are sent to the graveyard. They're not sent to the graveyard by card effect. From here, I can go to the battle phase. I can swing over the Rukalos. He takes a bunch of damage, and then I can proceed with my normal plays, sort of bait out these shufflers. Let's say like later on that these shufflers happen to activate because I'm using a bunch of tier names, which is fine. I still have like options, you know, like theoretically, maybe you can push through a play. Maybe these shufflers are just shuffling back your options. You have other cards like Tactics. You maybe have other plays as well. Maybe like you can push through an Agido if you happen to mill them, for example, off the Sheeran. You get to essentially, like, I already cleared the board, which is a big deal in the mirror match, and I did that for free, essentially. All I had to do was attempt to leave my main phase, which is pretty spicy. Even if my board is mediocre at the end phase, I still get special summons coming back, so we have a lot of options here. Obviously, we can special summon back the Elf or our own Merle if we had one engraved, or we can special summon back a Rhino Heart and use the effect as well, because it does not negate the effect. So we can actually make our own Kick Hallows. We can, of course, summon their Kick Hallows as well to use the effect if we wanted to. Generally, probably better to just do this, so we keep the Rhino Heart as well, and then our names shuffle back. We get our own Kick Hallows. From there, we can either fuse off into... So the Rukalos is already dead because we swung over by battle. So we can either fuse off, you know, potentially into our own Rukalos and our own Drago Stapelia, or just add a Havenness to our hand for the next turn. So this card is something that you guys can definitely check out. It's really niche, versatile. It is potentially dead sometimes because you do have to play kind of into your opponent's board in order to bait them to use the effect sometimes. But yeah, this is just an idea I had. So definitely tech it into your deck, see how it works, check it out, see if it's actually any good in the Sprite Mirror match as well, or the Sprite matchup, because sometimes they use a bunch of their effects as well. So yeah, definitely give it a go. Let me know what you guys think, and rate, subscribe, comment your ideas below about tier matchup in general, and I'll see you guys in the next video.